If you remember these headphones from elementary school, you're going to want to watch this.
These headphones look familiar to you. You might have been involved with a program when you were in elementary school called the GATE program. That is Gifted and Talented Education, and this was really popular in the 80s and 90s.
Gay kids are starting to remember the same things, and they haven't thought about them in decades. And these are not vague feelings, these are specific details. The cards, the headphones, the drink, things they didn't even know they still remembered.
How many of y'all out there are ex-GATE kids? How many of y'all were in gifted and talented classes? It's coming out that these classes were a little bit more than they were advertised as. Let's get into the GATE program. What it look like TV?
I am back! What it do, baby?
YouTube's own Varnell Hill.
Did you miss me?
Your very own spokesman for the Insidians. We're inside and we're comfortable.
They're so comfortable.
And I'm back with another one. And y'all, before we even get started, I bit the heck out of the side of my tongue, so I'm gonna have a little bit more of a lisp than I usually have in the other videos, but we're gonna get through this. But today we are looking at the GATE program, the Gifted and the Talented program from back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
This is the first step along your path to a gateway.
And it's a lot of fishy stuff that went on that now that people look back, things aren't just adding up the way they're supposed to.
These headphones look familiar to you. You might have been involved with a program when you were in elementary school called the GATE program. That is Gifted and Talented Education, and this was really popular in the 80s and 90s. Now, when I was in school, I remember getting hearing tests, which is what a lot of other kids supposedly say they were told and they were taking to the GATE program. It involved a lot of matching items like these, like matching shapes, remembering things to see like how good your memory was. The theory behind the GATE program was that this wasn't to test your hearing or to put you in a special program or see what type of accelerated learning you would do good in, that it was more done by the government to test if you had some type of psychic ability. And a lot of people think this is where the idea for the show Stranger Things came from, the GATE program, which a lot of people remember happening, but also don't remember too much about the specific testing process. I don't remember being in the GATE program. I remember getting a hearing test. If that was what this was, I have no recollection other than a hearing test.
Now, if you was in the GATE program, hit me up in the comments section and tell me what you remember. Tell me what you remember about the hearing test, whether you was in the Gateway program, the GATE program or not, because I remember the hearing test, and I remember the hearing test that I have now. And I know the hearing test from back in the day when I was a child in school, that hearing test is not similar to the baseline hearing test that I get today. I can say that. And I do remember taking a test where they wanted you to guess things. I do remember that. But like I said, hit me up in the comment section and let me know what you remember about the hearing test and what you remember about these tests, these gifted tests that they was giving us when we was little. What do you remember?
This is the first step along your path to a gateway.
If this sound sparks something in your memory, a feeling you can't explain, you might have heard it before you were old enough to question it. Thousands of former students across the United States remember being exposed to audio just like this in classrooms and testing labs, in small rooms with no windows, all under the banner of a program called GATE, which stands for Gifted and Talented Education. Most were told it was part of an evaluation, a gifted test, a focus exercise, a hearing test. But what if it wasn't any of those things? What if this sound was part of a government-funded psychological experiment? One you never agreed to, and were never meant to question. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the GATE program and the disturbing possibility that it wasn't just about identifying gifted children, but about conditioning them, studying them, and in some cases, controlling them. What most people remember as GATE was supposed to be simple. A government-funded program designed to support gifted children, the kids who finish their worksheets early, who read above their grade level, who tested unusually high on standardized assessments. At least, that's the story we were given. But now, thousands of adults, people who have never met, never spoke, didn't grow up in the same state, are recalling memories that do not fit the harmless picture of a gifted education program. Memories of being pulled from class by someone who didn't work at the school. Memories of windowless rooms, strange boxes, Zener-style cards, headphones attached to briefcases, hypnosis-style audio, mysterious pink drinks, and the repeated instruction to visualize. Don't guess, visualize. These are not part of the curriculum in any district handbook. These are not the tests given by school nurses or guidance counselors. And yet, the details match across thousands of people from the late 70s to the 80s and 90s. People separated by geography, but connected by memory. Because when we compare these recollections to declassified government programs from the same decades, the overlap becomes too strange to ignore. Predecessors to the GATE program emerged in the late 1950s. Coincidentally, this is also around the time the federal government stepped directly into public education through the National Defense Education Act. They funded psychological tests, IQ screenings, creativity assessments, and early childhood evaluations designed specifically to identify children who showed unusual potential. That part is documented. That part is real. But here's where it becomes unsettling. At the exact same time, behind the scenes, the CIA was running covert behavioral experiments. Projects Bluebird, Artichoke, and eventually MK Ultra. They were studying hypnosis, memory alteration, remote viewing, sensory manipulation, and altered states of consciousness. And every single method they used shows up in the memories of certain GATE alumni. The headphones, the tones and frequencies, the guided imagery, the dissociation, the visualization tests, the missing time, the amnesia-like gaps in childhood memory. The timelines match, the techniques match, and the population being tested. Now, to be clear, we do not have proof that GATE was part of an MK Ultra successor program. We do not have a document that says this happened in schools, but the patterns, the timing, the memories, and the psychological methods involved are not random. At some point, the question becomes, were these truly gifted programs? Or were some of us quietly filtered into something else? Because to understand the memories resurfacing now, we have to understand the systems that created them. And one thing is already certain, GATE was never just about academics.
I'm not trying to get too conspiracy theory-ish over here. I'm just bringing y'all the conversations that they're having over on TikTok. And a lot of us are older, and a lot of us been through the GATE program or other gifted and talented programs. And a lot of stuff just don't add up, man. I remember I used to have to go outside. We had trailers where all this stuff would take place at. We had a trailer where the hearing test would take place at. And now looking back, it is a little odd that the trailer didn't have any windows. Like, why couldn't you have windows on the trailer for the hearing test? Tell me what you remember from getting your hearing test. Was it any windows in the room that you had your hearing test done? I remember vividly that in the trailer where the hearing test was, there was no windows. In the same trailers, I had my speech classes in, and that was under Cora, whatever Cora was. I went to Cora for speech lessons, and that was in the trailer that suspiciously didn't have too many windows. Usually, these trailers have some windows. For some reason, wasn't no windows. But that's what I remember. Tell me what y'all remember in the comments section.
I saw a TikTok on the Gifted and Talented program, and there were a lot of things from that activated my memories, like the headphones, and they were usually attached to a briefcase, and it was weird tones. And I was in the GATE probably a lot younger, earlier in time than you. It would have been in the 70s, so there were things they did then that they wouldn't have done in the 80s or the 90s. One of the weird things was the stars. No one's mentioned this at all, but there were gold metallic stars that they would give us. And depending on how well you did was the color of the star that you got. And the gold stars had a weird taste to them. When you'd lick them, there were the lick stars, ones that had adhesive. And if you did really well and you got a gold star, I swear they'd make you feel weird. And I don't remember much more than that. I remember that gold star days were like you did nothing else that day. At least nothing that I could remember. Other things on the more normal side were, guess what this card's going to be. Do this maze on a single try. Figure out the answer, and then only use a pen to go through the maze, marking that particular route that was the correct route. A lot of what is at this location, given only numbers, or what's in this envelope. Like, read what's in this envelope. A lot of really, like, testing your psychic abilities, I guess, is what it was. Anyway, if this brings up any more memories about the GATE program, oh, at Stargate, that's when you hear Stargate, of course, it's the Stargate SG-1, but that didn't come around until later. The Stargate, the stars, that's where I remember the Stargate from, because if you were a star in the Stargate program, you got stars. Anyway, if this triggers any memories for you, let me know.
If you were in GATE, I need to tell you what was actually happening in those rooms, because GATE kids across the country remember the same two things: the cards and the headphones, and neither of them are what they told you they were. This is Declassified Psychic. The cards first. Former GATE kids remember being handed a deck and then being asked to guess what symbol was on the other side without looking. Circle, cross, wavy stars, square, star. Just guess. And if you're thinking that sounds like a game, you're wrong. Those are called Zener cards. They were invented in the 1930s, and they were created specifically for testing for extrasensory perception. That is their only function, and they have never been used for anything else. The CIA purchased decks of them. The U.S. Navy used them under the North Pole in a submarine to test ESP communication. Duke University ran government-funded research over psychic abilities for decades. They are literally psychic ability test cards. And they were in elementary classrooms inside a federally funded gifted education program. And nobody thought that was weird. Now the headphones. Kids were told they were doing hearing tests, except what was playing through those headphones was not a hearing test. It was binaural beats, specifically hemisync audio developed by Robert Monroe from the Monroe Institute. It works by playing two slightly different sound frequencies, one in each ear. Your brain tries to reconcile the difference and creates a third frequency. That pulls your brainwaves into a specific altered state. The state's associated with deep meditation, expanded consciousness, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing. The CIA studied this technology. The Army, they assessed it. In 1988, the U.S. Department of Education published a report commissioned by the U.S. Army. It specifically said, and this is from the document, that by altering sound patterns, it is possible to alter states of awareness. That is a U.S. Army report published by the Department of Education about consciousness altering audio in 1988, the same decade GATE was running across schools all across the country. So, to be clear, the cards in those rooms were government psychic ability test cards. The audio in those headphones was CIA consciousness altering technology, and the kids were told it was school. Find the series on my page. It's only going to get weirder.
Sounds to me like she did her homework. And it also sounds to me like I said in the beginning, things just are not adding up.
Hey, this video is for the GATE kids. If you were in the GATE program, if you're not a GATE kid, then you can just scroll away. I have a question. So, how many of you GATE kids were let go from the program without a formal exit? Because I remember going, and then at some point, the kids that I was attending the GATE experiences with, they kept going and I stopped. Like, I just wasn't invited to go, which would imply to a young child that, like, you're just not that gifted. But I kind of wonder if you had the same experience of just, like, not going anymore.
That's a real good question. If you were in any type gifted or talented type classes and they used to come get you out of class in the middle of class while everybody else was still working, when did it stop for you? And were you ever notified that you got kicked out of the program or whatever? Because I remember being pulled out of class several times and then it just stopped. Then it was over. I guess they had figured out that I wasn't talented or special enough and just left me alone. I remember continuously going to Cora to get the speech classes because I couldn't talk for nothing. But as far as the other special stuff, it ended and it was over and they never asked me to leave class again.
TikTok, you have done it again. So I've gone down the rabbit hole about the GATE program. And just to make sure I understood what it was, I Googled it. So it's the Gifted and Talented something program. They talked about having a mole on your left arm. I have the mole on my left arm. When I was growing up, I was actually in the gifted programs. There was one program in particular, I remember they took us out of elementary school. It was just a few of us, and they took us to Hampton University. And we would go there every week and spend hours there. I don't know the particular order, but they all had different names as we grew up. So I remember LEAP, that was the first one, LEAP, L-E-A-P. The second one was GAIN, and then the next one was GRASP or something like that, It was like there was G's in the name. I do remember that. And I remember doing strange activities that were interesting, but it wasn't what the other kids were doing. When I think back to it, it felt like they were probably mental activities, I guess, analytical. They were testing my analytical skills, and I am a very highly analytical person. But I'm curious now, so I'm going to do a little digging and see what else I can remember. But like I said, I do remember being in special programs where they would take you out of class every week. But at that one program, they took me to a college in our area, Hampton University. I'll be back if I remember anything else.
Yeah, and that's another little fun tidbit that they keep adding in here. They say if you was in the GATE program, you have a mole on your left forearm. So check your left forearm and see if you had a mole. That might be an indicator that you was in the GATE program.
I don't mean to come on here with my tinfoil hat on, but what do you mean everyone in the GATE program has a freckle on their forearm? What do you mean that everyone in the GATE program reports missing memories from their childhood? And the vivid dreams in constant deja vu? Are we in the documentary?
And that's another little funny / interesting aspect of this whole thing that she just slightly touched on. The dreams. It seems like a lot of people that was in the GATE program are having the same dreams. People from all across the internet, people that do not know each other, are all describing the same dream.
Because when former GATE students found each other online as adults, they realized something strange. They weren't just connected by their childhood experiences. They shared remarkably similar traits, struggles, and abilities in adulthood. And most bizarrely, many of them shared the exact same recurring dream. They call it Mall World, a liminal space that feels strange yet familiar. And even though these people have never met in real life, they all describe having eerily similar dreams about this place. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the other traits they share. First, there's the pattern recognition. GATE kids as adults report an almost compulsive ability to see patterns everywhere. In data, in social situations, in random events, they make connections others miss, sometimes to the point of paranoia. They overthink everything, analyzing situations from every possible angle, unable to turn off the analytical part of their brain. Sleep problems are nearly universal. Insomnia, delayed sleep phase syndrome, vivid dreams, difficulty maintaining normal sleep schedules. Many report being natural night owls, feeling more alert and creative in the late evening and early morning hours. Some wonder if the consciousness exercises from childhood permanently altered their sleep architecture. There's also a pervasive sense of not fitting in. Many GATE adults report feeling like outsiders their entire lives, struggling with social anxiety, feeling like they're observing human behavior from the outside rather than naturally participating in it. They often describe feeling like they're playing a role in social situations rather than being authentic. Many also report strong creative abilities. They excel at abstract thinking, creative problem solving, and artistic pursuits, coming up with unconventional solutions. Many work in creative fields, technology, or research positions that require innovative thinking. And then there's the dreams, the one experience that stands out as too specific and too consistent to be coincidence. It all started with people online discussing something strange, a recurring dream about a mall that doesn't exist. As more people shared their experiences, a pattern emerged. Thousands of people were dreaming about the same place, and a disproportionate number of them were former GATE students. A massive, sprawling shopping mall that exists in the dreams of thousands of people, and the details match in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's always multi-level, usually 3 to 5 floors, though the exact number is hard to pin down. The layout doesn't follow logical architecture. Hallways loop back on themselves. You can walk in a straight line and somehow end up where you started. Escalators and elevators don't always lead where they should. The stores are familiar but wrong. Brand names that almost make sense but aren't quite real. A bookstore that's always there but changes location. A department store that you can never quite remember the name of. Shops that feel like real stores from childhood but merged together. Hybrid versions that exist only in this space.
Now, we done discussed the headphones, we done discussed the funny cards, but it's one thing that we didn't discuss yet that several people have touched on in this video. Some people have this memory. I want to know if you remember this. Do you remember the pink drink?
And a lot of people said that they also took a drink beforehand and it was pink and it kind of looked like Pepto-Bismol.
Do you remember having to basically rinse your mouth out with fluoride? They told you it was a fluoride drink. Was that really a fluoride mouthwash that we all had to swish and spit out? And why was we doing that at school? They used to send us to the dentist. So why was they giving us fluoride in the classroom to spit out? Because I remember the pink drink. I remember having to swish and spit it out. Why was that?
GATE program kids, did you drink the pink idiot juice? Do you remember them making you swish with this crap? That was not a good thing. As you all probably realize, the pink liquid that they tricked so many families into and so many children into taking back when we were growing up in grade school, and very specifically in the gifted and talented classes, was a very concentrated fluoride mouth rinse. And my belief is that they tricked everybody into taking this in order to damage you. The most recent studies into fluoride's effects on intelligence are very conclusive, and they're the complete opposite of the bullshit and propaganda that we were fed growing up. Studies such as this on developmental fluoride neurotoxicity, a systemic review and meta-analysis, conclude that children in high fluoride areas had significantly lower IQ scores than those who lived in low fluoride areas, and that the results support the adverse effects of high fluoride exposure on children's neurodevelopment. But aside from simple IQ, what else were they getting rid of? Well, this study focuses on cognitive impairment induced by excessive fluoride, and it shows that prolonged exposure to excessive fluoride causes fluoride accumulation in the hippocampus, resulting in cognitive dysfunction. If you've been following my work for any amount of time, you know that I've exposed you to the work of the late Dr. Michael Persinger, who proved conclusively that the hippocampus is where telepathy, clairvoyance, and intuition occur within the brain. Every animal has intuition. We are supposed to have intuition. A dog or a pet will know when a person is a piece of crap. An animal will know when a hunter is lining it up in his scope. We're supposed to have the same ability to sense danger, to sense BS, and largely that has been cut out of us. The last few years could not have happened if people could sense danger and know when something was up. Yet, here we are. And the fact that this crap directly impacts the area of the brain that allows for intuition is no coincidence. So if you were a GATE kid, what's your mental ability supposed to look like? Well, I can show you, because I never took this. My parents never signed the permission slip, and I was singled out to go stand on the side of the class and watch everybody else line up to take this crap every week. So I retained my mental faculties. I also never used fluoride toothpaste. I still to this day use non-fluoride toothpaste, and my teeth are just fine, but the rest of my mind is pretty damn sharp as well. Let me show you with a simple example. When everybody learns the alphabet, they learn it by rote with this little jingle. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's slow, it's stupid, it really doesn't use your full capacity. So when I'm thinking about something or recalling something like the alphabet, I'm not doing it by rote. I'm not doing it how we were all taught back in the day. I think that's very slow. I think it's designed to slow us down. What I'm doing is looking at a picture of it. So I've got A through Z right now. And I can flip that backwards and I can do Z through A and I can recite that to you. Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, I, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, because I'm looking at it. I could take it and fold it on itself, and I can go A, Z, B, Y, C, X, all the way down to M and N, because they're standing next to one another, like two columns. I can turn that backwards and upside down. I could write it upside down and backwards, much like Da Vinci used to do in his notebooks. People always talk about Nikola Tesla's ability to do this and build a device in 3 dimensions and move it around. That's really quite easy. I retain this ability because I didn't destroy it within my own mind.
So there it is, y'all. Do you remember the headphones hooked up to the funny looking briefcase thing with the crazy tones in it? Do you remember the funny flashcards and them wanting you to guess things? Do you remember the real crazy like word puzzles and games you had to play in those classes? Do you remember drinking the pink drink, the fluoride drink in class, even though, you know, they had dentists and stuff that come in, they had teachers giving out fluoride drink that didn't make no sense. But do you remember that? Just some questions from your childhood, man. A lot of people are remembering these type things and they just really don't make any sense, man. So hit me up in the comment section, like I said, and tell me what you remember. And tell me what the gifted program was named in your area, because they wasn't always named GATE. They went by several different names in different areas. Tell us what the name of your program was and what you remember from the program. And how long were you in the program? And do you remember being thrown out and not told to never come back? Or did they just stop come getting you one day? Like I said, they just stopped coming to get me one day and it was over. I kept going to the speech classes, but the whole gifted thing was over and done with. I guess I wasn't smart enough for them. But anyway, tell me what you remember. But anyway, y'all, this was the GATE program. So this video is going to end like all the other videos. Hit me up in the comments section and let me know how you feel about everything you have just witnessed.
Tell me how you felt about what just happened there.
And if you made it to this point in the video, you are my MVP.
It was a stone groove, my man.
I'm out of here.
The GATE program. Everybody is talking about that, but nobody's talking about the G.A.T.E test. Like, they used to pull students for that too. Have you ever seen Malcolm in the Middle? And he had to guess that note card of what everything up there. That's what I was pulled out for. I was one of those students that was pulled out multiple times, and they didn't have that in North Carolina. They only had that, well, I was in school in Florida. And so before we moved to North Carolina, that was going on. I don't know if they got a permission slip or what to be signed, but they were pulling me out of class and my parents didn't know. And they were asking me what was on the note cards every single time, and they did it multiple times. What I found out was the kids that was pulled out for that program was tested because they showed significant amounts of perception, like deep perception, at an adult rate. Like, you wasn't thinking like a child, you was thinking like an adult at a young age. And they kept pulling you out because you showed, you know, every single time when you talked, when you had to do any type of literature reading. Because of that, and because of the storytelling, because of how deep you thought, that's why you were pulled out. And it wasn't everybody in those classrooms. I remember from my classroom personally, I was like one of the two. There was another person that was pulled out, but they never told us what they were doing.